Good morning, everybody. All right, so I see a couple new faces, so we'll just take a few minutes. Basically, we're going to greet each other. You guys can stand up, walk around, give some hugs, some handshakes, and this is just a time to greet each other and see how each other's week was. So just take a few minutes, stand up, and walk around and do that now. All right. I hope you all have a good time greeting each other. If you could make it back to your seats. Sit down, give your last hug, your last handshake, and we'll continue with service. All right, so now we'll be having the pastor come up and give the sermon, so please prepare your hearts. I'm really grateful to be in this community, to have such amazing pastors. I've said this almost every time I MC, but it's truly amazing. They constantly take care of me, my family, all of us, take us out to lunch, so let's have our hearts be ready for them, and let's welcome them up. Oh, offering song. Okay, so I have the offering song.
I will rise, I will rise. I will rise, I will rise. It was like somebody knew how to cripple me with a perfect plan to break my belief. Took me piece by piece till my faith was all but gone. It knocked me down so far that I couldn't get up, but face down in the dirt I heard the voice of love saying, do not fear, you won't be here for long. I will rise again, I will rise again. I believe that I had to break so love could make me whole. But I will rise again, stronger in the end. I believe in a brand new day, a love that saves, so I can say I will rise. Who I was, you won't recognize me. Love came down and redefined me. Piece by piece, put me back together differently. And the perfect plan to try to bring me down has been put to shame. It's been turned around as I come so alive that death is afraid of me. I will rise again, I will rise again. I believe that I had to break so love could make me whole. But I will rise again, stronger in the end. I believe in a brand new day, a love that saves, so I can say I will rise again. I will rise, I will rise. I will rise, I will rise. I will rise, I will rise. 'Cause you've been here before, and you've overcome the world. My life is found in yours, and you say I will rise again. You heal and you restore, you break down every door. My life is found in yours, and you say I will rise again. I will rise, I will rise. I will rise again, I will rise again. I believe that I had to break so love could make me whole. But I will rise again, stronger in the end. I believe in a brand new day, a love that saves, so I can say I will rise again. I will rise, I will rise. I will rise, I will rise. I will rise, I will rise. I will rise again. I will rise, I will rise. I will rise again and again. I will rise, I will
Okay, thank you. Love that song. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Remember, this is our theme song, right? You guys remember that? It's our theme song? Okay. So, thank you all for coming today. It's really great to see all of you. And today I'm going to be talking about removing barriers to growth. Thank you. So, some of you know that I have recently been reading this book, The Purpose-Driven Church. And I've been sharing with people who wanted to be on the list about what I've been reading every day and like inspirations that I've gotten and ways in which I feel like we could become more purpose-driven ourselves. And at one point in the book, he's talking about, well, if I had to start all over again, what would I do? And so, Rick Warren now, he's got his church is in Orange County, California, and last I checked, has about 20,000 average Sunday service attendance. They have about 13 campuses around the country and internationally, including Germany and I think India. I can't remember exactly. And then they've spawned probably 30 or 40 churches that are separate from Saddleback, but are different churches entirely. And so they have had a lot of success. And me personally, I love looking at other people's success and trying to figure out, what can I learn from them? What can I learn from what they did? And even though maybe it's a little bit different, but what can I gain? They must have done something right, There must have been some kind of universal principle that they followed, that if we could, understand some of that, maybe it could help us also. And so he talks about in his book, what if I had to start all over again? What if, I started from scratch? Because they started from scratch at the beginning, right? He had nothing. Him and his wife, his pregnant wife, they felt a calling to go to Southern California, and not because they had family or friends there, but because they looked at it on a map, and they realized this is a good demographic of people that would be kind of like a place that we feel called to go to, and we're going to go there and fulfill God's calling in our life. That was the idea, but kind of crazy at the same time. So they went there and started from nothing. He found people on his own, and eventually grew what there is now. It's really quite amazing what they could accomplish in 25, 30 years or whatever, however it's been, 32 years, I think, 37 years. So he says, if I had to start all over again, I would find volunteers to fulfill the position of a music director for church, find somebody to take care of new guests and new people, help them to understand the value of the Bible and of Christ, get baptized, these kind of things. Another point is that they really made an effort to reach out to people who they were not believing in any religion, or maybe they grew up a certain religion, but they didn't really believe in it, or they hadn't been to church in 20 years or something like that. It was those kind of people. They really didn't want to just attract people from other churches. So that meant that they had to start from scratch. They had to teach them the real basics. What does it mean to be a Christian? What does it mean to read the Bible? Why does the church even exist? Why is it even important? These kind of really fundamental questions that many non-religious people have. And so they had one person. He would have one person to manage those beginners, and then he'd have a second person to manage taking people from the beginning stage to kind of the next level, not just of learning and receiving all the time about the basics, but also like taking them to the stage of maturing their faith and maturing their character. How do I apply the Bible to my life? How do I become more of like a godly person? And why should I even bother to do that? And finding ways to give back here and there, both financially, but also their time and energy. And then he'd have another person who would be the person who would take them from being kind of in that stage of development, spiritually and emotionally, to the stage of maturity, where they would have lots of tools and kind of have really kind of a stable perspective on their faith. But then, most importantly, being able to find some way to give back, whether it's by going out and becoming a missionary in another country, or starting some kind of outreach, or some kind of addressing some need in the world, like starting a school or dealing with poverty or something like that, or starting a small group, starting something that is empowering and inspiring for people, but fundamentally finding a way to get to the point where they're giving back. So he brings up this point about what is maturity. And he says, if you look at nature, which I think is really cool because that's what we say too. Well, if you look at nature, right, we can learn so much through nature, right? If you look at nature, what is the sign of something that is mature? Like, how do you know that something has become mature, whether it's a cell or a plant or an animal? Anybody? Fruit. Exactly. Reproduction. Thank you, Jazz. So, when a cell becomes mature, it divides, right? It multiplies. When a plant becomes mature, it goes to seed, right? And when a animal becomes mature, then it has the ability to reproduce. And so he was saying that naturally when we become mature too, we reproduce, not just in the physical sense of like having kids, but we multiply ourselves. We multiply our faith and our experiences, and we multiply goodness in the world. This is kind of the natural growth of life, of humans. And so we study in the principle, and today I'm going to be really pulling a lot from the divine principles, so please excuse me if I know that many people like and really enjoy when I have a lot of different multiple sources and have a lot of the Bible in there. Today I'm pulling from the divine principle entirely, so please work with me here. So the divine principle says that all things reach perfection after passing through the growing period by virtue of the autonomy and governance given by God's principle. Human beings, however, are created in such a way that their growth requires the fulfillment of their own portion of responsibility. In addition to the guidance provided by the principle, they must exercise their responsibility in order to pass successfully through the growing period and reach perfection. So what the divine principle is explaining to us here is that, I mean, commonsensically, right, that we grow through the natural laws of nature that God gave us and that God governs the universe by. Both because we're part of creation, but also just as human beings, there's this natural process of growth. And as long as you have enough food and water and sunlight, I guess, you need sunlight to some degree, we grow and we mature as human beings, at least physically. But it's also saying that, and we all know this too, right? That it's not enough just to become an adult, right? Maturity has nothing to do with age. I often tell this to people, like, I know 60-year-olds that are like children, and I know children that are like 60-year-olds. Age doesn't define where we're at in terms of our relationship with God and our maturity and our ability to be able to relate with people in a healthy way. But just because we can grow up physically and have an adult body, it doesn't mean that we necessarily have been able to mature ourselves. It doesn't necessarily, even if we can reproduce physically, just like in creation, they can put seeds out and stuff like that. Even though we can have kids and we can have sex and all that stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we can bear fruit or reproduce spiritually, effectively. But besides the fact that this is the natural growth that God created for us, it's the levels of growth, we also live in a time of restoration, right? We understand that from the principle and also from the Bible that the world that we live in is not the world that God intended for us to live in. It didn't go the way that God wanted for things to go. So we also have to, besides maturing ourselves and growing as people, we also have to deal with restoration. We also have to deal with fixing the mistakes of the past, unfortunately. So in the divine principle, it states, as earlier stated, for fallen people to complete the purpose of creation, we must become perfect incarnations of the Word, a state our first ancestors failed to attain. Becoming perfect incarnations requires that first we be cleansed of the original sin through the Messiah, and after receiving the Messiah and being restored to the position of the first human ancestors before their fall, a path still remains to be trod. We must become one with the Messiah, centered on the heart of God. Then follow him along the uncharted path to the summit of the growing period, and thus finally become perfect incarnations. It goes on to say that after Adam established an unshakable foundation of faith, he was then to become one with God. thereby establishing the foundation of substance. This means he would have become the perfect incarnation of the Word with perfect character, fulfilling God's first blessing. So I also want to mention that we are starting a sermon series. First time ever. We've never done this before. But we've started a sermon series. We're going to have guest speakers, and we are going in an order of topic. So our first topic is the first blessing, right? What God asked us to do to become fruitful, right? Fruitful, to multiply, yeah. And so these talks are all based off of like maturing ourselves, becoming people of character, become people of God, this kind of thing. So in this way, had he not fallen, Adam would have completed the purpose of creation. And then finally, to remove the fallen nature, a person must make an indemnity condition in accordance with the principle of restoration through indemnity, by taking a course that reverses the process through which human beings initially acquired the fallen nature. So I know that's a lot, right? But when I was reading through this, I really felt like, yes, we know that originally we were supposed to become mature people, but that's kind of, it's good to know. It's good to know, like, we have that kind of goal in life, in that direction in life. But, we don't live in that world. We don't live in that kind of ideal world that God originally envisioned, where everything was so great, and we had such good role models and fantastic parents, and everyone was there to support us in our journey in life. Life is not like that. But also living in it, but just hearing that we're in a time of restoration isn't really that helpful either, because, in our own personal journey of life, we all have different course, right? We all have a different situation. My situation isn't going to look anything like my mom or my dad's situation. It's not going to look anything like Lorette's situation or Linda's situation or David's situation. Everybody's situation is so different. But I love that the divine principle really gets down to the root of what are the problems in society? Where are they coming from? And even though they may seem conceptual sometimes, even though they may seem so far away, oh, this story in the Bible that happened so many thousands of years ago, what does that have to even do with my life? I love how the divine principle really goes in depth into, why did these things happen? What was the emotional process? Because really, if you just believe that the fall was, disobedience to God and eating a fruit that God told him not to eat, there's not a lot of life lesson to learn there. But if you read the divine principle and you understand how it explains the Bible, and it explains how there was this whole process through which we deviated away from God, and how Lucifer just felt so jealous and envious of Adam and Eve, and he felt that God didn't love him anymore, even though he was God's right-hand man for all of creation. It really paints a picture of our own lives. At least it does for me. So we need to look at, so in the last slide it talks about the, in the last slide it talks about restoration being a process of reversing the way in which we fell away from God. And so when we study about the process through which we fell away from God, then we see so many instances of it in our own society. I can't hardly get on Facebook anymore because I just see so much blaming. I don't even want to get into it, but it's hard. Like, I feel heavy many times after. Oh, thank you. After I get on there. Yes, by taking a course which reverses the process through which human beings initially acquired the fallen nature. So I wrote some examples, some of which are just really prevalent in my own life, but some of which I just, I recognize are things that we see a lot in society, and I think that we can recognize that these are not good things. These are not things that if God really had an ideal for this world, should be a part of it. First one, I gave a whole sermon on this about a month or two ago, all on blame. Blame, so much blame. I see so much blame. People blaming each other for this, and the world is this way because you believe this. And the world is this way because you believe this, and you support that idea. Or, I blame my parents because, if I had had a better life as a child, my life would be better. Or I blame my children. This is kind of something where I get caught up sometimes. blame my children because, oh, if I didn't have children or if my children were less work, my life would be better somehow or something like that. I don't live like that, but there are times. There are times. But blame. People want to blame me because the church isn't what it should be, or want to blame the church, some ethereal institution, because things aren't better or something like that. Blame my husband, blame my wife. There's so many places we could place blame if we really wanted to. Another thing that we learned from the story of the fall is hiding our shame, hiding our iniquities, hiding our transgressions. That was the first thing that Adam and Eve did. They hid. You can't hide from God, but I guess the desire was so strong that they had to try, right? And they tried to hide from God and pass blame to the other person when God confronted them and asked, where are you? What are you doing? What happened? And we try to hide the things in our life that aren't really that inspiring to people, which is another reason I don't like social media, because you only see part of somebody's life, and it's usually the good part. People don't usually get on social media so that they can show all their problems. That's not always the case, but it usually is. Jealousy is something that we see a lot in this world. And comparing, my situation to the other person's situation. Why can't I have a life like them or something like that? Why can't I have the things that they have? Or if that person has more than me, they must be a bad person. And we see that in the fall too, because Lucifer was jealous that Adam and Eve, these pipsqueaks, these little snotty-nosed children, were God's children, that God loved them so much, and even though he loved them, he loved Lucifer too, but he was jealous. Instant gratification at the expense of long-term happiness. This is something we see a lot in this world too. Our society is what's the word? Saturated in it. Fast food culture, junk food culture, I guess is a better way of saying it. Things like pornography, irresponsible spending. These are like some examples of ways in which we try to get something that makes us happy in the moment, but we kind of suffer for it in the long run. Judgmental mindset, or also condescending viewpoint. I'm better than you. I've done more than you, so you should listen to me kind of attitude. Dominating or controlling others, gossiping. I mean, these are just some examples of things that we see, not just in society, but, as the pastor, and having really made relationships with many of you in the community, actually, these are not some things that exist outside of our community. They're out part of the fallen world or something like that. These are actually things that are very, very pervasive within our own communities, whether it's around the country or here locally. These are things you actually see quite a bit of. And that's not I don't want to make anyone feel bad for that, but we need to recognize, we need to be honest about ourselves and where we're at, and unless we do that, we can't find any way to move forward. Myself, personally, I find myself falling, and maybe if you want, you can do this as well. Try to think of a couple areas in which you find yourself kind of getting trapped in some of these. More likely than not, you are probably experiencing one of these in some relationship in your life right now. If not, that's fantastic. Good for you. But more likely you are, because we are all dealing with this. We're all in the same boat. And so we need to recognize that. So let me just talk about myself for a minute. So first of all, if I had to pick two areas in which I felt I had the most fallen nature, I would pick blaming, and I would pick judgmental or condescending view. That would be, if I was really honest with myself, which I think I am being, maybe I have others too, but if I was being really honest with myself, which I think I am, then I would pick those two areas, because I find myself doing those things quite a bit. And my wife can tell you, it's absolutely true. She's the one that helped me pick those two. But I find myself trying to put blame on other people when the only person I should be not necessarily blaming, but taking responsibility for this situation is myself. Sometimes I'll come home, I've shared this with you before, but sometimes I'll come home, had a rough day or difficult conversation with somebody, and I'll be in a bad mood, and I'll take it out on my kids. They're coming up, Daddy, 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 let's play, or let's do this. And I'll be like, stop being so noisy, I need to relax. And try to kind of make them responsible for my lack of self-control in a sense, and which is very wrong. And one thing that I really feel like I have to, and I feel like this is important for me to reiterate over and over and over again, is that we can't expect our kids. I mean, we can tell our kids to do certain things and live a certain way, but in the end, if we don't live that way, they're going to recognize that at some point. Maybe when they're like 5 or 6 or 7, they're like, oh yeah, Dad, sure, that's good advice. But when they're teenagers or when they're young adults, they're going to think back on those situations and recognize, hey, my dad was actually preaching what he wasn't actually living the way he was telling me to live. And that's going to make a difference. I'm really, that's why I really try to take this seriously, because I don't want to just be telling my kids how to live or giving them advice, but I also want them to, I want to embody that so that they have a strong reason to want to live that way too, because they see that it's a good thing, a good way to live, that I'm happy and fulfilled by it. But the reason why I bring up many different subjects like this all together is not because I want to focus necessarily on these problems that we have, I guess you could say, but it's just to tie back to the beginning, is that our life is a process of growth, right? We all want to become mature people. We all want to be reproducing the fruits of our life. We want to be able to not just have children, but multiply goodness in our children. We don't want to just have an effect on the world. We want to have a really positive, a beautiful effect on the world. Like these people that are so known for having left a lasting impression in the world. Saints and people who've really, lived in their life what they believed. I know that we all want to become like that. But the kicker comes when we get stuck with this part here, the fallen nature part. Because I think that one thing that we have to recognize is that growth stops when we give in to our fallen nature. Growth stops when we tolerate or make excuses for mindsets and ways of thinking and action that we think are justified because, I have a good reason, or somebody hurt me, or something like that. We think we have good reasons for acting the way that we do. But what happens when we give into our fallen nature, when we give into blame, when we give into gossiping, when we give into the instant gratification or the judgment or the condescending viewpoints, then we stop growing. We stop developing as human beings, because the process of growth is through making the effort to go the opposite direction. That's how we grow in this world. And ideally, we wouldn't be dealing with this stuff, right? It's kind of a drag. But this is the world we live in. This is the world we grew up in. But this is also the world that we want to be better for our future generations. So if we don't make the effort to confront our fallen nature, in society, in our society, it's very relativistic these days for many people. Anything is okay. If you don't feel like doing this, then it's okay. You don't feel like doing it, don't do it. But and if you have a habit of being judgmental, then that's probably not a good thing. But if that's the way you are, then that's the way you are. And we have to recognize that if we really do believe in God, and we really do believe in the divine principle, and we really do believe in this faith, then we have to live the faith. We have to live it. And living it means that we can't accept those things as a part of the way we should be. That's what it means to live, one aspect of what it means to live a principled life. We actually put it into practice. We look at God's word, We look at the way human beings are supposed to be, and we judge ourselves based on that standard. Not just based on how I feel in any given day, or what I feel justified in my actions to do because of whatever circumstances there are in my life, but judging the way I am based off of the standard that God wants us to be. And when we do that, then we recognize a lot of things about ourselves that maybe aren't really particularly that inspiring, but by working on those things, then and little by little, no one's expecting miracles to happen, but little by little, as we work on those things, I recognize, oh, blaming isn't good. I need to practice gratitude. I need to practice taking responsibility. I need to, if I'm blaming somebody, like if it's my wife, like if I'm blaming her for something in my life right now, then and I recognize that's not the way I should be. And then I take steps to put that into practice. Maybe I serve her in some way. I thank her in some way, even if I don't feel like it. I love my dad, he shares a story sometimes about this experience he had with my mom and how he was trying to practice giving because he recognized that in his ancestry, there was a lot of men taking from women, just expecting, well, you cook, you clean, you do everything, and I'll just, reap the benefits of that and not show a lot of appreciation. So he really tried to take the high road and do the opposite by giving something back. I think he gave a little bit of money. It was just a token suggestion. Like it wasn't like he was giving her money every day. It was like sometimes she would give the money back. But it was an action. It was an action in the opposite direction of the fallen nature that he was trying to restore. And these are, may seem small, but by doing this, we can slowly, move in a positive direction. Anything is better than just giving in. Anything is better than just allowing our fallen nature to run our life. So, please take a few minutes to think about these points, because I really believe that we are all dealing with something here or there, whether it's a blame, hiding in some way, jealousy, living a life sacrificing the long-term happiness for a short-term gain, judgment or condescending view, thinking that I'm better than somebody else, dominating or controlling others, gossiping, and also withholding forgiveness is another one. Sometimes we want to prove to somebody else that they hurt us, and so we're going to be unhappy, miserable, so that at the end of life I can go to them and show them, look at what you did to me, Hopefully nobody here is in that situation, but I've seen it. And the only person that we are truly hurting is ourselves. So if there's an area here that you feel like maybe is kind of strong in your life, then let's tackle it. Let's take it on. Let's look at what can I do to mold myself into a godly character so that as I grow and become a mature human being, that I'm really multiplying and I'm reproducing goodness, not something else, which is I believe what we all want. And then restoration can happen, and then growth can happen. But none of it can happen if we hold on to our fallen nature. So that's what I mean when I say breaking through barriers of growth. So next week we'll be talking about actual growth. And so that's the... Oh, yeah, I had some examples here, personal examples. But yeah, you go ahead. All right. My wife wants me to share them. So sometimes when my wife sleeps in, I get really judgmental. I'm like, I've been up since 5. What are you doing? Get up and take care of the kids. Or if the kids aren't behaving, I shared that one already too. And blaming kids for me feeling upset. So, and something that can really help with this is sharing with a friend. Sharing with an accountability partner or just somebody that you trust, somebody that you look up to, and just say, hey, I really want to work on this area of my life. And I really believe that as we make more effort, each and every one of us in our community, to deal with these things, then our whole community can get uplifted to a new level. If you can't think of anything, then you might need to pray about it. I think we all have something. We all have some area we need to work on. If you're in a state of mind where you think you have nothing to work on, then this is probably controversial for me to say, but you're probably wrong. Yeah. So that's the end of my message, and please join me in prayer.
Thank you. It was a really powerful message to check ourselves. It's really hard to do because it means that we're wrong. And we all want to be right, don't we? Most of the time, when we're having an argument with our spouse or family or kids or whatever, it's like, no, I'm right, and whatever you're doing is incorrect, right? So I think what showed up for me, or what I noticed, is that what was challenging me is humility. You have to humble yourself, which is hard because it doesn't really matter whether you're right or wrong, but if you add humility into it, I find continuously in my life that God appears when humility is there. So while we're going to be having the tithe come up, so take a few minutes, reflect, pray, meditate, and just think about in your life, what came up for you, or what, not just him sharing, because he was kind of like, in front of everybody sharing it as a person, but think about like what's going on in your personal life, and that can be your offering or the fruits of your life, and humble yourself. So take time to do that now. And now if you'll join me watching the weekly updates.
Hey, Carlson here from the Evangelism Department. Let's take a look at the weekly update.
The October monthly meeting was kicked off by Reverend Richard Busing in his first meeting as president of FFWPU.
There's an emergence of new leadership among our young people, desire to serve their community.
Kaylee Moffett reported on the youth and young adult ministries' work to help younger generations inherit unificationist faith.
We've been working to create a trial run of a pre-K curriculum.
And Teresa Rischel shared about the work being done by young people on campus.
Students on campus getting such incredible skills to articulate what they believe in.
Luke Higuchi of Headquarters Media Department reported on the week he spent recently in Florida with GPA Channelgook missionaries as they worked with IRFF to provide relief following Hurricane Irma. Branch Garter and Naria McGee reported on the recent Ocean Challenge Festival in Kodiak, Alaska, as well as other ocean-related activities. Mrs. Crescentia Degodi reported on her experience at the recent Cosmic Blessing in Korea.
We were probably some of the most blessed people for the 7 days that we were there because we got to be around all those cute couples for 7 days.
The blessing isn't something that we just take when we feel like we want it, but it's really something that Heavenly Parent is giving to us as a gift.
Following the recent landmark visit to Korea by many ACLC ministers, Dr. Michael Jenkins spoke about the importance and impact of this trip.
Clergy can remember three things that stick out. Mother speech. The Christianity era has now moved into the era of Channelgook.
ACLC co-chair Archbishop Augustus Stallings pointed out that Dr. Ki-Hoon Kim's early foundational work in Chicago has enabled ACLC to blossom over the years.
What Dr. Ki-Hoon Kim sowed in Chicago decades ago is bearing fruit today in clergy all over the United States of America.
With this, Dr. Ki-Hoon Kim took the podium for his concluding message. He reported that True Mother was very excited about the upcoming peace rallies in Japan and Korea.
We must come together, support True Mother's victorious foundation in Korea. So True Mother said, let all come together, and then let us glorify Heavenly Parents and True Father in spirit, True Mother on us, and celebrate the year 2017 centering on True Mother.
This past summer, volunteers from 9 nations came to Bahia Negra in South America to learn about ways to care for the environment and to take part in various service projects. Organized by the Leda Project, volunteers painted garbage cans and planted fruit trees throughout the community, as well as painting a mural at the local school. They also learned about fish farming, especially pacu, and harvested taro, a root plant that multiplies generations of new plants from a mother plant. Volunteers also help with the Pantano Animal Park project by constructing a small bridge, painting a welcome sign, and preparing the grounds for the planting of new grass and flowers. Missionaries at Leda look forward to bringing this experience to more volunteers in the future.
This is our 6th day here in Florida helping with disaster relief with IRFF. Today we were able to split into different teams to go to multiple homes to cut down trees, move debris to the streets, and we were able to hand water and snacks to different homes.
My wife and I were working in front hard this morning, and these nice looking young people came by, stopped and asked if we need help. Sure did, so they come back by and they helped us a lot, a whole lot. We're very grateful, always will be.
Today is our 7th and final day here in Florida, and we're able to help 5 families to really clean their yards and get a little more peace of mind. We did it! And then we met with Dr. Patterson at the end of the day and turned in all the assessments that we did throughout the week.
I want to thank all of the volunteers that came down to help us in this disaster response. They worked in a difficult area and reached out to a lot of people and provided a lot of emergency help. And I want to thank the supporters and those who sent them here, and IRFF and Dr. Kathy Winings for the work she does. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip.
And now our project is over, but IRFF still continues to support the Florida disaster relief effort. So please continue to donate to Florida Disaster Relief. So many people were devastated and affected by this natural disaster, and they still need a lot of help. Thank you!
If you haven't been to IPEC yet, talk to somebody who has, and they'll tell you what an incredible experience it is. We have 7-day Divine Principle and weekend Divine Principle workshops. The next 7-day workshop is October 18th to the 24th. After that, there's a weekend workshop, November 3rd to the 6th. Then there's a 7-day workshop, November 15th to the 21st. And in December, there's a 4-day workshop scheduled for the 8th to the 11th. Go to familyfed.org/DP retreats to sign up for a workshop today.
I would like to personally invite you to the upcoming Energize Blessed Couples Retreat. It's going to be held in the beautiful Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania from November 3rd through 5th. Think about it. How recently have just you and your spouse taken a whole weekend to just be together? Probably it's been a while, right? For those of you who are concerned about finances, the Blessing Family Ministry is offering some scholarships for families that have financial need. Take a look on the website for more information, to register, and to apply for the scholarships at blessedmarriageproject.org. And we look forward to having a wonderful retreat together with you and your spouse.
That's all for now. Thanks for watching. God bless, and see you next week.
All right. I'd like to let the Sunday school kids go. So if you're a Sunday school kid, please make your way, go to Sunday school, and have a great time. All right. How's everyone doing today? Good? You warm enough? Happy to be here? Okay, good. All right, so first announcement is, there is a black zipper bag. It's like apparently very important. It's Mr. Wise's. It was in the office. So if you see a black zipper bag, someone moved it or something, just make sure to give it to him. And for the first announcement, we're going to have Reverend Hendricks Sr. give an announcement. So welcome him up.
Hi, everybody. There are some of you who have guests and friends and people you'd like to introduce to our community, and true parents and the principal, and I'm trying to organize a small group of presenters. And I'm not talking about people who just, do the same old, but somebody who feels a passion to want to be creative, do something like a TED Talks type thing, or something different, something visual, something of your own creativity to explain parts of the principle in some neat way that perhaps your young person's generation can identify with, or any age group. But I'm just looking for a small number of people who want to present. So if you feel called to want to present the principle in some creative way, talk to me, and we want to be available when those people have guests and friends they want to bring to our community, somebody who can explain what we're all about. If that's you, please talk to me. Thank you.
All right, so first announcement is Interreligious Celebration is happening on Saturday, November 18th from 1 to 3 p.m. Our church and the local Women's Federation chapter will host an interreligious celebration of marriage and family event. We and other religions will share our views on marriage and family. Blessings to married friends and guests will follow. Cake, finger food, connectivity. And if the Spirit moves you to help, please talk to Shirley Chimes or Gail Alves. All right, this is something I'm really excited for, the Halloween party. I'm super pumped for it. So please come, because I want to see us all make fools of ourselves, have the kids run around and have a really good time, have food. And there's also a photo booth, apparently. So please come, have a good time, bring everybody, and let's have a great time. Next, as you also heard, Carlson was talking about the workshop. He was saying if you want to hear a testimony from somebody, I actually went to it with my wife. I initially really didn't want to go, but I actually have a wonderful time. There's sightseeing, good food. It's not just lecturing all day. It's actually a really good experience, and you have conversations with people. So if you want to hear a testimony or hear what it's about, please ask me. And this next week will be the Smith family. So if you see them, please make sure to thank them and give them your thanks. Okay, maybe that can be handled at a different time. Okay. So anyway, give them your thanks just the same for being amazing. Okay.